there wasn't an audience in many cases. People say, well, my dad or my grandfather wouldn't talk about it. And I'd say, well, do you think he had a willing audience? Because, you know, people don't want to hear about blood and guts so much. And it isn't a reflection on them, it's just one of those things that we as civilized people rather not go into.
I'll never forget the sights and the smells and the sounds and the screams and bombs going off.
I wish I could call them all back and let's just have a real get-together, but it's not possible.
I never did tell my wife or my children anything about Iwo Jima or anything hardly in relationship to World War II.
We were sharecroppers. I was the oldest of 6 children.
We were very poor. Our family wasn't used to a whole lot.
My father had an old mom and pop Italian grocery store.
Well, I was born in Silver Creek, at Spring Creek.
My father passed away when I was 13 years old, and I had 8 sisters and 1 brother.
I remember the depression, and I remember that the attitude was, oh well, let it play out. Let's see what's happening. And it didn't. The crash came, and then it was a real struggle.
And then when I got old enough, I went to work in the cotton mill. We didn't have very much.
Well, I went to work on my 16th birthday, and I worked all my life and went to school.
The Depression was still on in 1939 when I went to Georgia.
I had 4 brothers and 1 sister, and we sat down. Some of them were small. You know, our way out of this life is an education. But it's got to be an education with a dream. It just can't be an education.
ROTC became almost a fraternity. We had to study hard, and my class was on a speed-up program where we had to go the full year in order to graduate in December, which was 6 months earlier. The catch to that was to go to OCS straight to Fort Benning.
Well, I can tell you exactly where I was on September 3rd, 1939, when Germany made the first invasion, because I was then a junior at the University of Georgia. And we had been to church on Sunday morning, and we came back home and we heard the news, but that didn't bother us so much. But we jumped quickly from September 1939 to December the 7th, 1941.
A date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.
Early that morning, there were boys out on the street hollering, "Extra, extra." My father runs out and buys a newspaper, probably for a nickel. And he brings the paper in and says, "Pearl Harbor's been bombed." We go, "What does that have to do with us?"
The Japs they have attacked Pearl Harbor. And the big question, as you say, throughout the room where I was, where in the hell's Pearl Harbor?
I ask that the Congress declare that since the unprovoked and dastardly attack by Japan.
At that time, I wasn't sure exactly where Pearl Harbor was. It's not something that you just normally would know unless you were a history student or something, I guess.
I heard about all those ships and stuff that they sank. We were wonderful to be able to overcome all that.
time became tougher and tougher when we found out how much of the fleet was there. And all of us had friends who'd already gone in that we'd understood were in the area, in the Pacific and so on.
On Sunday, December 7th, 1941, a state of war has existed between the United States and the Japanese Empire.
Changed your outlook on life in a hurry. And you see how things can happen and how things can change.
At first I, didn't give it much thought because I was young and didn't realize what was going on until I realized later that this meant war.
And we knew that sealed our fate for everybody.
Anticipation more than anxiety, because we knew by then that things were not getting better.
Well, we had a bunch of Americans that didn't like being surprised like that attack, and got together and they built ships in a hurry, and we were prepared to go in there and to win the war.